Okay, picture this. A country where the actual word for bread is officially changed to the name of the leader's mother, where a giant golden statue of that same leader rotates 24/7, so it's always facing the sun. Sounds like something out of a wild movie, right? Well, it's not. This was real life in Turkmenistan under Saparmurat Niyazov, who was, without a doubt, one of the most eccentric and absolute dictators of our time.
So let's just start with that question because it's a good one. Could a single person really get an entire country to stop using the word for bread and replace it with his mom's name? It seems completely impossible, but for Saparmurat Niyazov, that was just, a regular Tuesday. And believe me, that was just the tip of the iceberg.
And this is where things just get monumental. This is the Arch of Neutrality, a $12 million monument basically to himself. And sitting right on top is a golden statue of Niyazov that was literally engineered to rotate with the sun. So no matter what time of day it was, he was always the center of the universe. His universe, anyway.
You literally could not escape the guy's face. It was everywhere. Think about it, you couldn't even buy a loaf of bread, which remember was now named after his mother, without seeing his portrait staring right back at you from the money. Every single purchase was just another reminder of who was in charge.
It didn't even stop there. Even the military got the branding treatment. His golden profile was literally woven right into the army's flag. I mean, this goes way beyond politics. It's like a state-sponsored religion built around one man. Which leads to the big question. How on earth did one guy pull this off? How did he get this level of total, absolute control?
Well, the answer, like with so many dictators, starts with a very carefully constructed origin story. Niyazov's path to power didn't begin with some grand plan. It started with a personal tragedy, one that he would later use as a weapon to build his own myth.
You see, he was orphaned by a massive earthquake and grew up in a Soviet orphanage. So he learned how to play the game, how to navigate the system, from a super young age. He spent decades just methodically climbing the Communist Party ladder. So when the Soviet Union finally collapsed in 1991, guess who was in the perfect position to grab the reins? He didn't just take power, he completely redefined it, declaring himself Türkmenbaşy, which means leader of all Turkmen, and eventually had himself made president for life.
So, with that absolute power locked down, Niyazov started on his real life's work, building one of the most intense and all-encompassing personality cults the world has ever seen. His goal wasn't just to rule Turkmenistan, it was to completely erase the line between himself and the nation.
He literally remade time itself. January? That became Türkmenbaşy, for him of course. April was renamed for his mother, Gurban Sultan. And September? Well, September was named after his own book, a book we're going to talk about, because it basically became the new Bible for the entire country.
And where could you go to get away from him? Absolutely nowhere. Cities were renamed for him, other towns were named after his parents. His name was slapped on everything, schools, airports, even a meteorite that happened to fall. You turn on the TV and bam, there was a silhouette of his head as the channel's logo. He was simply unavoidable.
But his biggest project, his most ambitious idea, went way beyond just renaming things. He decided he was going to rewrite the very soul of his nation with a book that he wrote himself. It was called the Ruhnama, or the Book of the Soul.
And the claims he made for this book were, well, they were insane. He straight up declared that anyone who read it 3 times, just 3 times, would be guaranteed a one-way ticket to heaven. So this wasn't just a book, you see. In his world, it was a sacred text, and he was its prophet.
And no, this was not on the optional summer reading list. The Ruhnama actually replaced textbooks in schools. If you wanted a government job, you had to pass an exam on it. You wanted to get a driver's license? You'd better know your Ruhnama, chapter and verse. It literally became the central pillar of all life in his Turkmenistan.
So, beyond the giant monuments and the holy book, Niyazov's rule just kind of spiraled into a series of truly bizarre decrees. It's like he became obsessed with micromanaging every single tiny detail of life. And the results, well, they just got stranger and stranger.
For example, opera and ballet. In 2001, he banned them. Just gone. His official reason? They were, and I'm quoting here, decidedly un-Turkmen-like. So I guess the national culture he was trying to build just had no room for things like Swan Lake.
Then he went after libraries and hospitals. He ordered all of them outside the capital city to be shut down. And his logic for closing the hospitals was particularly chilling. He said, if people are ill, they can come to Ashgabat. For anyone too sick or too poor to make that journey, it was basically a death sentence.
He also had some very specific opinions on entertainment. He banned lip-syncing because it had a negative effect on the musical arts, okay? And car radios? He decided they were completely useless and outlawed them. The soundtrack to your drive was either state-approved music or just silence. Even how you looked was under his control. Long hair and beards on men were a big no-no. And then came his dental advice. He really didn't like gold teeth and suggested that people should instead gnaw on bones to make their teeth stronger, just like he actually noted young dogs do. You just can't make this stuff up.
But look, a golden world built entirely for one man, it just can't last forever. In 2006, Niyazov died suddenly of a heart attack. And he left behind a nation whose entire identity was wrapped up in him, a nation that now had to figure out what in the world to do next.
So he was buried like an ancient king in this enormous, opulent mausoleum in his home village. But even as they were sealing the tomb, the foundations of the world he built were already starting to crumble. The deconstruction process had begun almost immediately.
His successor just started systematically wiping him away. The months got their real names back. The Ruknama disappeared from schools. That giant golden statue, it was quietly moved from the center of the capital out to the suburbs. And finally, his face was taken off the money. The era of Turkmenbaşy was being officially scrubbed clean.
And it all leaves you with this really big question. When an entire nation's identity is built around a single person, what's actually left when they're gone? What happens to a country's culture, its history, its own sense of self when the golden statues finally come down?